Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining in. Welcome back to Cherry and Timber Talk. Hey, Mahesh, Yogi, and Devendra. How are you guys doing?
Fine.
All
How
good.
are you?
Awesome, awesome. Good to have Yogi back consecutively on the show. I mean, that's a record of sorts given his track record in this summer. Yeah, but then yeah, it's a very very special show today, and I'm really really excited as we all are because uh, we did mention about the book launch, a very special book launch. The theme for today's show is cricket stories, and we have had some amazing storytellers on our show till date, and one of them is already here, Devendra, as well, which we have had the pleasure of having with him, with us lot many times, and I think it's a complete honor to have you on the show as well, Devendra, today as well. And
Thank you. My pleasure.
and it's actually it's not a surprise for us, but a big surprise and a big celebration of sorts for all of us and our fans as well, because there's one guy who's been with us since inception, since the show started, and he has told numerous cricket stories, and he's so passionate about the game, and he's an amazing orator as well, and I would love to kind of have him at the stage today, and I think I can just sit back and relax and enjoy Mahesh Kuti, who will be launching his special book. Mahesh, over to you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, each one of you. I think it's been really a great time that I've had discussing cricket with all of you all. And this book that I have written is an outcome of these discussions that we've had, right? I mean, we've discussed cricket on WhatsApp, we've discussed cricket on shows, on calls. So we've had a great time discussing cricket. And that actually, I thought, was the reason why I started writing this book. Okay. Like cricket, I think when you're writing a book also, you need a team. You need support. You need the support of your friends. You need support of your family to actually put this book together. And I think I was very, very privileged to have friends like you guys, because you all constantly pushed me and I was able to write this book. Today, I mean, why did I choose today as the day for the launch? Is because my father is celebrating his birthday. And I thought it was
Amazing.
no better day than to launch the book, right? I mean, he's a huge cricket fan, so more the reason for me to launch it on that day. Having said that, the reason cricket kathas came into being is that these are stories about cricketers from the years. I mean, it starts with Don Bradman, the oldest cricketer in the book, and it ends with Sachin Tendulkar. So I've covered, I mean, probably 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I've not restricted it to only Indian cricketers. I've got cricketers from India, Pakistan, Australia, England, Sri Lanka. So I've tried to do everything possible to make it, as reader friendly as possible in terms of language, in terms of stories. I've made the stories nice and crisp. So if I have to put in a number to the number of stories in that, I think it would be around 50 stories in that book. So there's a lot of stories to read and enjoy, and these are stories that even a normal cricket fan would read and enjoy. You don't have to be somebody like one of us who follow cricket like deep into it. We don't need those kind of statistics and techniques, and all those things are not there in the book. It's beautiful written stories. There are humorous ones. Most of them are humorous, and during the show I shall definitely narrate a couple of stories, which I think, now if somebody would ask me which is the best story, for me all the stories are very good, because that's why it's there in the book, right? But there are a couple of stories which I would love to narrate at least a few times. So that's something that I would be doing during
So,
the
Mahesh, can I request you to show the book to all our viewers as well once?
Okay, here it comes. So this is what the book is. So the title is self-explanatory. I don't have to tell you what the book is all about. It says cricket and Qatar, so it is cricket stories. So it's simple. So no huge number of words for describing it is required, and then the stories flow in beautifully one after the other.
Amazing.
So
So let me also add in our good friend Nishad, who's back here, Mahesh, and he's
Hi.
back for
Hi.
the
hi
special reveal
Nisha,
of
nice to
yours.
see you.
Yeah, congratulations on the launch of your book. It was Really amazing that you had called each one of us and told us. I was very happy to know that, and I'm really looking forward to reading the book. And yeah, one more thing, Yogi, congratulations on the new house, by the way.
I
So
will.
there are a couple of new things today. Yogi's got a new house, and I've got a new book, right?
I'm getting mine as well next week, Nishad.
Okay, house or book?
House.
House.
Yeah.
No, but now on this panel it's three down. So next two we are expecting books from Venu and Yogesh,
Okay.
Okay.
and Yogesh's book will tentatively, I think, be titled Namaste London. So
Hey, Yogesh, Nishad
Probably
has
not.
done you a huge favor by telling you what the title of the book has to be, right?
I know. I think Yogesh, we are the odd men out in this elite panel, so we got to find a new job, I believe.
no, nothing like that.
We are
But
in the month of October. We are sitting in August company.
so but I mean, I must also tell you, when I was writing my book, everyone, all of you also supported me, and it is great that Mahesh has come out with these stories, and it's really incredible. Also, most obviously most experienced in terms of writing, Devendra, he's profiled obviously the big three of Indian batting, and they are definitely worth the read. So I think with the Sunil Gavaskar book especially, it was very big help to me, in my book on 1971, because Devendra had found all those intricate details, and because of the COVID pandemic, I couldn't access certain libraries. I mean, where the Times of India reports were there from, say, that year. So, Mahesh, what did you do in terms of research? Like, how did you find those stories? Like, I had help from Mr. Clayton Murzello, from Devendra, and then I knew where exactly to look, and they could help me with their stuff. So, what did you do?
You know what, Nisha? That's a very good question. I This idea of stories was always there. If you remember, I used to do these one-off stories uh, on YouTube, and I used to put it. So this idea of stories was always there. And what I would do is I would get on to different YouTube channels. I would listen to some stories, and then I would go back and verify, because there are a lot of cricketers who just say something, right? So I would go back and verify and see whether factually they were right. So the while I started writing from January 1st this year, the the research part, I don't want to use the word research, but this interest and this liking towards this subject would have started probably a few more months earlier. And like what I keep telling, I keep telling that without people's support, it's impossible, because whenever I would have a story, I would bounce it off with friends. That's the only way you can do it. Whether that story is worth coming into it. So if I would have had about 70 or 80 stories and it brought it down to 50, I have picked up 50 stories which I think is the best. I'm sure
Hmm.
Devendra would have done the same thing when he was researching. He would have picked up stuff which he believed was good. Maybe I might have enough content to write another half a book, because those are the stories that I've kept aside, which we could use it in different. I could use it on YouTube or something like that. So research has been done in terms of. And like these days, writing is relatively easy for the simple reason that you've got YouTube, you've got. These are different digital mediums from where you can actually source a lot of interviews and all that thing, right? One guy who actually helped me a lot, he might never know about it, is Ian Chappell. Because to me, Ian Chappell is probably the best storyteller in cricket. The stories that he would say and all those things, it really helped. So that's as far as my the idea of writing the book was. Then, like what I told, that before you came in, Nishad, I was telling that without the support of family and friends, it's almost impossible for somebody to write a book, because you need motivation. See, everybody goes through a phase when you think, no, yeah, this is not going. You have these good days and bad days even in writing, just like in batting, right? Some days the articles just flow beautifully, like cover drive and the straight drive, it comes out beautifully. And there are some days when even an overpitch ball you play to the fielder, it's the same thing. You might write for about 2 hours, you might have just written 3 lines, and you're not even happy with those 3 lines. So these
Very
things
true.
happen, and then you take a break, and then you get your family or you get your friends to talk about it and say, this is a good story, come on, write. Then the belief starts coming back into you, and that's how you start writing a book, right? In my case, my brother was a great motivator. he would call up every second day. Right from the month of February, we expected the book to be over by then, whereas I've just written 2 chapters only. But then when people expect you to deliver, that's a time when you actually take things very seriously. Like every time I went to meet my father, I've written that in the acknowledgement page. Every time I went to meet my father, he would ask me what's the new story. So I had to do the research whether I liked it or not, because just to keep him happy, I had to keep digging stories and start writing. And then I've mentioned all your names also in the book, because you guys have all been a big contributing factor to this, because we discuss so much of cricket, right? I mean, on shows, on WhatsApp, and we're constantly discussing cricket. That's the only common thread between all of us, right? I mean, cricket has always bound us together. So all these things put together, yeah, it's been, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, when the book got over, I had a lot of free time because there was nothing else to write, right? So, I mean, I really look forward. I mean, I was telling somebody that I don't mind writing a second book sometime very soon, because the art of writing, I've understood the art of writing a little better now. And secondly, the idea of writing, I mean, when to give it a break is very important, because there will be times like what I keep telling, that for 10 days, you might just not feel like writing. So just leave it. You will come back. It will come back to you. So those things have been a good learning curve, and I think I've really enjoyed it. So while I would definitely talk about a couple of stories right now, there somebody wants to tell the story. I'm sure all of you all will also have a lot of stories to say. Like Devendra and Nishad have got lots and lots of stories to say, I'm sure.
Stories on demand.
I have to just tell them, 1997, tell us a story. It's like the jukebox, they'll come out with a story. So, okay, the story that I'm going to narrate today, I mean, while all the stories are extremely close to my heart, this is a story that I would love to narrate. We have to go back to 1973. Okay, this is about Sir Garfield Sobers, probably the greatest cricketer the game has ever seen, and I don't think anybody is going to come anywhere close to him. It's a pity that he doesn't play T20 cricket. He couldn't play T20 cricket. I mean, he would have been a really terrific player to have in a T20 team. So 1973, West Indies was playing England at the Lords. And this innings that I'm going to talk about is an innings that he scored his last century, his 26th century. Okay. So Rohan Kanai was the captain. Kanai won the toss and West Indies started batting. Towards the end of the day's play, Sobers went out to bat. He was unbeaten on 31 when it was stumps. He got back to the dressing room, went back to the hotel. Clive Lloyd came up to him and said, how about going out for a drink? Now, Sobers is one player who never refused a drink. Anybody invites him for a drink, he would never say no to it. He's a fantastic, let's go. So Lloyd, Sobers, and a few of their friends went to a pub close by and started drinking. And they drank and drank and drank. So by the time they realized, it was about 4 in the morning. Here it is, they're playing a test match. Imagine, none of the players can do it these days, right? I mean, with all the media around them, they would never be able to do it. So cricket has changed quite a bit. At 4 o'clock in the morning, they went back to the hotel. And Sobers thought that if I go to sleep, there is no way I'm going to get up and bat. So he decided to continue drinking. And he drank till 9 in the morning. At 9 in the morning, he told his friends, okay, now I need to go and have a shower. So he went back to his hotel room, had a cold shower. And when he came down, he thought the best idea is to walk up to the ground so that he would be able to absorb some fresh air. So he walked up to the ground, absorbed the fresh air, and he went out to bat because he was unbeaten, right? And the first few overs, the bat and the ball were speaking different languages. There was no way he was connecting. I mean, there is no surprise, because there's no way that he could have connected. But the genius in Sobers is that maybe a few overs later, when he got acclimatized to the pace, bounce, the light, and the mental state in which he was, he started timing the ball beautifully. He reached about 70 when he had terrible stomach pain. So he thought, I think I should retire and go back. And he said, nah, let me score a century and then I'll go. So with great difficulty, he managed to score a century, and then he retired hurt and went back to the dressing room. So Rohan Kanai asked him, what happened? He said, terrible stomach pain. So what do you want? He said, give me a concoction of brandy and port wine. So Kanai quickly arranged for it and gave him a shot of brandy and port wine. He felt a little better. So in these days, when there is a hangover, now what these people do, something known as utari or something, they say, that you get down your hangover. So maybe something like that. So Kanai asked him, "Are you good?" Or he said, "Or do you want one more?" He said, "Let's have one more round, but just make it double because then I feel much better." So gave him another round, and he felt good. At the end of at the fall of the next wicket, he went out to bat, and he scored the remaining runs. He scored 153 runs before Kanai declared the innings. That was Gary Sobers for you. Gary Sobers played his cricket very hard, but he partied hard, like most West Indies player. But the thing about Sobers is he was an absolute genius. I don't think anybody else in this West Indies team could have done anything like this, with the exception to Vivian Richards. I thought Richards was brilliant as well. But I think Gary Sobers could do anything. So this is one story that actually, the more you read, you start believing that Gary Sobers was extremely talented, extremely skillful. I like the disclaimer, correct. But these days cricketers don't do that any which way. Nishad will be able to tell us more about the standard procedures that the cricketers have these days.
Yeah, in the sense, it's almost unimaginable because today you've got curfews. One day before the match, you've got a curfew. And look, last few years we've been in a bubble, so it's like a curfew throughout the tournament. You just do ground to stadium, stadium to ground. Now it's gone. But generally in ICC events in particular, you've got these team curfews, and there have been a couple of players, in fact, who have been suspended and sent back from the last two World Cups. One, I think, was in 15, one of the Bangladeshi players, and I think one was last time an Afghanistan player. So if you violate those curfews even a day before the game, then it's considered you just cannot do it. And because of that, now the procedure is such that there is ACU involved as well.
Correct.
So ACU also needs to know all your whereabouts, especially when you're in the middle of a tournament, what you're up to, and you've got to tell them if you're staying out and everything. So all that comes into play. So it's virtually impossible for something like this to happen. But this is a story. I think it's a really amazing story, and it tells you. I don't know if this is a true story. Maybe Devendra can confirm this, but there was another West Indian cricketer, and they had gone to one of the greats, and they had gone on an overseas tour somewhere, and the manager was really strict, and he said that 11 o'clock everybody should be in bed. 11 p.m. everyone should be in bed. So the manager had a round around the hotel foyer and saw all the doors were shut, lights off, everyone's inside. And at 11:45, there is a knock on his door. And it is one of those legends. And he says, 11 p.m., I was in bed. It's 11:45. I'm going out now. So I don't know how true this is, but apparently this is what had happened back in the day.
With the West Indies team, you can expect anything. I wouldn't be surprised.
It happened with the Indian team as well. I mean, I've written about that in my book. In 71, Colonel Hemu Adhikari, being the army man that he was, had imposed a curfew as well, that 10 p.m. everyone in bed. And Farooq Engineer, living in England, he was in the Indian team, of course, but had played for Lancashire for a bit. And when they came in, and his partner was Syed Kirmani. Kirmani was the youngster of the team. It was his first India tour, and they were roommates. So it was the senior most wicket keeper and the junior most wicket keeper. And he said, so basically what Farooq Engineer did is, on his side of the bed, he set pillows and put a blanket. And he told Kirmani that when Hemu Adhikari will come and check, you dim the lights and just open a little bit. He'll just see a figurehead on the bed and he'll leave. So, and that's what actually happened. Colonel Hemu Adhikari he knocked on the door. He saw, Kirmani just dimmed the lights. He opened the door and he's like, "Acha, wo bhi so raha hai. So jao, tum dono so jao." And he went away. Not knowing that Farooq Engineer returned at an unearthly hour then.
I think Devendra, come on. I need a good story from you. I'm sure you have. We have to choose which era do you want. He'll tell you a story of that era.
With Devendra, we need to tell him, the year, the player, the team, then he can process it and then, okay, here it is.
So I'll talk about early 85. So England had come on a tour of India and they had beaten us. The second last time we lost a series to England at home. And SMG was the captain. He was not in good form. And we were playing this inconsequential final ODI at Chandigarh at the Sector 16 stadium. The one-day series had also been lost, so it was an inconsequential match. And England at that stage were leading 2-1 in the test series with one test left to be played at Kanpur. So our best bet was to square the series by winning the last test. There was no way we were going to win the series. So things were pretty dismal, and there was a lot of talk about either Ravi Shastri or Mohinder Amarnath being appointed captain for a limited overs tournament in Australia that was to follow. And SMG was in his room, was in Ravi Shastri's room. They were together, and suddenly SMG got a call from Mrs. Gavaskar, and she told him to come back to the room. So SMG went, and Mrs. Gavaskar informed him that the national selection committee, which was in another hotel in Chandigarh, had just called to inform him that he had been retained as captain. And that came as a surprise because SMG was not expecting to be retained as captain because we had lost the one-day series, we were trailing in the test series, and he was not in good form. And then what followed, what Mrs. Gavaskar proceeded to tell him was quite bizarre. They wanted him to join them at the venue where they were to have the meeting, and he was told not to leave the hotel through the main exit because the media was waiting there. So he was supposed to scale the wall and drop down in the dead of the night, and there was a car waiting for him in the dark to pick him up and take him to where the selectors were sitting and having their discussion. So it was quite bizarre that the captain of India had to do a Spider-Man, and he actually did that. He scaled the wall, and he wrote in one of his books that it was while he was scaling the wall that he made up his mind that whatever happens, I'm going to step down after this limited overs tournament in Australia. And we all know what went on to happen in that limited overs tournament in Australia, the World Championship of Cricket. And I find it very sad and very tragic that when people, and even Indian journalists, have to take a lot of blame, because every time there's a World Cup, you come across these articles either in the print media or the digital media about the most radical things that have been done in limited overs cricket. And when they talk about pinch hitting, they will mention Mark Greatbatch, they will mention Jayasurya Kalu Vitarna, they will talk about Alan Border's use of Shane Warne, they will talk about Ranatunga's use of Muthaiya Muralidharan. But who was the man who started it all? It was a certain Sunil Manohar Gavaskar and the National Selection Committee. A certain Krishnamachari Shrikant was given the license to just go for broke in the initial overs. And for that limited overs tournament, we picked not one but two spinners in the 11 as attacking bowlers. And mind you, this was a time when it was believed that spin bowlers had no place in limited overs cricket.
Yeah.
And Mr. Prasanna, when I interviewed him for my Gavaskar biography, he told me that he was the manager of that team, which went to Australia for the World Championship of Cricket. And he told me that people were shocked, that how can you play two spinners in the 11? Shivarama Krishnan, who had not even been picked in the ODIs against England. He had played the test matches, but he had not been picked in the ODI series because the convention was that spinners had no place. And even in 83, we had Kirti Azad in the playing 11 for the final few crucial games. That was it. Ravi Shastri missed the last few games. So the accepted wisdom was that spinners have no role to play in test cricket, in limited overs cricket. But Mr. Gavaskar changed that. The selectors deserve to be credited for packing the team with all-rounders. We had no tail. Lakshman Shivarama Krishnan, who batted at number 11, had first-class centuries to his credit. Wow. So again, when even Indian journalists, they will talk about previous World Cups, they will talk about New Zealand and England in the 92 World Cup, how they packed their team with all-rounders, dibbly, dobbly, wobbly, webbly, something, what the New Zealand bowlers were called that in the 92 World Cup. But they will not talk about their own, what their own people did in 85. So I think that is one of my favorite stories of the captain of India. I mean, imagine Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma having to do that in today's time, scale the wall, and they will probably capture that moment also for posterity.
On the phones.
But yes.
Devendra, do you think that the 1985 team has been the best team India has ever had?
With all due respect to 83, 2011 and 2007, I think that was India's best limited overs team ever.
Or 13
that
as
was
well.
the best.
I mean, the Champions Trophy, apart from, even that.
Which one?
And
13.
Even the 13 Champions Trophy that was won.
Yeah, but in terms of team composition, I feel 85 was the best limited
That's what I'm
overs
saying.
team.
Yeah, I mean,
Huh.
considering all the ICC or the big event championship teams, yeah, that 85 had the best balance.
Yeah, in
Yes,
terms of batting and bowling, and the fielding was top notch as well. I think that's something which was so
absolutely
underrated.
brilliant. Yeah.
And it was convincing. See, in 83, people still say it may have been a fluke, but 85 was convincing. There was
Exactly.
no two ways about
Yeah,
it.
we demolished every opponent very easily.
Yes.
Only one team didn't get bowled out, and that was Pakistan in the final. And that too, they were down by 9 wickets.
But that was also that again one of. I mean, can I tell you one more story pertaining to that or?
Yeah, please,
yeah,
please.
Yeah. So the final against Pakistan, Pakistan batted first. Strangely, they won the toss and batted first, despite having lost to us after batting first in the first league match. And the ninth wicket fell at around I think 5:28 p.m. local time in Melbourne. And the rules of that tournament specified that if a team were to be bowled out before 5:30, that is half an hour before the scheduled close, which was 6 o'clock, then the team chasing would have to come out and face 2 or 3 overs before the 6 o'clock break. And Mr. Gavaskar, although he was not opening in that tournament, he knew that openers would have a tough time, because when only 2 or 3 overs are to be bowled in a mini session, the fast bowlers, and Pakistan of course had Imran, they would go for broke, and you never knew what would happen. So I think Ravi Shastri was in the middle of a very good spell of bowling. So he had already taken Ravi Shastri off, and he decided to call Chetan Sharma to bowl. Chetan Sharma was somewhere at fine leg, and we all know the size of the MCG. So Chetan Sharma took his own sweet time to run and mark his run up, all that. Then Mr. Gavaskar looked up and he saw that it was past 5:30. So he told Chetan Sharma to go back, and he brought Ravi Shastri on again. And after that Shastri over, umpire Tony Crafter went to SMG and told him, I know what you did. I know exactly what you did. But that was again
That's a tactical genius, right? It's like
Mr. Gavaskar, yeah.
yeah.
And that is what you need. Like the Indian women the other day, rain was on the anvil against Malaysia. You needed 5 overs to constitute a game, and they bowled all spinners in the first 5 overs. And 5.2 it started raining. So you've got to do these things. But I have a question for Mahesh. This was obviously against Pakistan, and Pakistan cricket is legendary for its stories, a lot of which we cannot discuss in a formal setting. So have you included any stories from Pakistan cricket?
Oh yeah, I've got Imran Khan, I've got Javed Miandar, I've got Inzimam ul Haq.
Is there a story about room numbers?
Pakistan players, right? We've got enough of stories to read.
Loom number.
Is there, yeah, exactly. Is there a story about loom number?
I think that's a story that everybody knows, so it might not make too much of sense.
I've heard one on Inzi, which happened during the 2004 tour, I think. And what happened was Anil Kumble used to obviously sometimes, Anil Kumble could really have fury on the field. And it was the other Pakistan batter who had irritated Kumble, and he was having a go at Inzi. And Inzi apparently goes up to Rahul Dravid and in his own way is saying, Rahul bhai, ye mere saath kyun lad rahe hai? Maine kya kiya? So, it's almost everybody was like, the other guy has done something, and Inzi has not said anything to you. Why are you having a go at him?
Nishad, what I really like is for a gentle looking person that Kumble was, and for Inzamam to be scared of actually confronting him, that says a lot about his aggression.
Yes. In fact, Professor Shetty has written in his book that during that match at Lahore, we had certain umpiring decisions going against us, and our old friend Steve Buckner was in the thick of things. So Anil was very upset. And when we came in for a break, there was a tray of sweets in the dressing room. So Anil apparently told the bearer to take that tray of sweets to Buckner, and Professor Shetty had to stop that bearer. Like Anil was being sarcastic. Wo usko de do.
Yeah, but Kumble was very aggressive also. As a player also, he was very aggressive.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
had that qualities of a fast bowler, I thought, always.
He did.
Because he actually
Yep.
initially started as whatever. You don't want to use the
But
word fast, maybe medium
Yeah,
pace
but
bowler.
talking
then
of sending stuff, once when South Africa were in India, Ray Jennings was their coach, and there was the first drawn test match at Kanpur. It was just everyone batting and batting. Andrew Hall, God knows, he batted 400 balls for 160 something. Then Sehwag comes and blazes his way to 170 odd. So it was just a boring batting day and batting game. So there was so Ray Jennings apparently said in the media that the Indian fielders were slow and they fielded as if they had pillows attached to their backs. So after India won the second test, the entire team took a pillow, signed the whole pillow, and sent it to the South African dressing room.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'll tell you one more story. So the second story I'm going to talk is about Doug Walters. Now, Doug Walters might not feature in many people's books as one of the greatest players, but he was a character. Character in the sense, when he actually started playing, people were thinking that he was the next thing after Bradman. He was so talented. He was so good, right? He averaged, I think, about 48 when he retired. He played for about 74 test matches. And Ian Chappell, who is not somebody who is lavish when it comes to praising somebody, has extremely high regard of Doug Walters. Now, Doug Walters also was somebody who lived life, in his own terms, and he loved to live, stay late in the nights and all that thing. But I'll tell you a story about his ability to score runs quickly. He was probably the only player in the history of the game to have scored 100 runs in a session thrice. So he used to score runs that quickly, right? So this was in the 1974 Ashes series at Perth. Okay. So Greg Chappell had got out and he was replacing Greg Chappell. So when they were crossing, Greg Chappell said, "You've got a good chance of scoring 100 runs in this session." They were about 10 minutes to go for tea. Okay. So he was not out at 3 when tea was called, and he came to the dressing room, had his tea, and went out to bat, and in his characteristic style started hitting the ball to all parts of the ground. So 1 hour after tea, when the drinks was going to come out, he was around 60, 65 runs. So Ian Chappell told the guy who was taking the drinks out, he said, "Go and ask him, how's it going?" So the 12th man ran up to him and said, "Okay, how's it going?" He said, "I think I've got a chance." Okay, that's all he said. So the 12th man came in and said, he says that he's got a chance. The moment he said he's got a chance, all the Australian players said, he will get it. He will get it some way or the other because he's that kind of a player. Fast forward to the last over of the day. He's batting on 93. He needs 10 runs to score 100 runs in a session because he was not out on 3 at T.
Yeah.
Okay. Those days, it was an 8-ball over. It was not the 6-ball over. It was an 8-ball over, right, in Australia. Ross Edwards was his partner and he was on strike. So he would have had at best 7 balls to score 10 runs. The Australians thought it was a cakewalk for him. First ball got a leg by and he came on strike. The Perth wicket those days was really hard and bouncy, so it was all really coming up there. So Bob Willis was the bowler. So Bob Willis dropped the ball short. He tried to pull. The ball took the top edge and went behind the wicketkeeper for 4. Oh, the Australians said, now it's like nothing. 6 balls, 6 runs, easy. It's so easy for him. It's like a walk in the park. But cricket has its own, own surprises all the time, right? Next 5 balls were dot balls. But that was something that the Australians had not thought of. I mean, 5 balls that this guy can play dot balls was not expected. So 1 ball, he needs 6 runs to get to 100 runs in a session. But most of the Australians said, he'll do something. And Bob Willis actually helped him by bowling a bouncer. And he hit it over mid-wicket for a 6. And he got to his 100. So he was walking back. So Ian Chappell said, let me check out what this guy feels when nobody's there in the dressing room to applaud when he comes in. He told everybody in the dressing room, get onto the shower. So all the players all went into the shower. And they were waiting. Now what will this guy do? So they heard footsteps coming into the dressing room, and then there was pin drop silence. So Curious got the better of Ian Chappell after about 2-3 minutes. He walked out. And what does he see? He sees Doug Walters sitting and smoking a cigarette. he says, "What? This guy has got no expression. Nobody is there. I mean, people would feel very bad. I played one of the best innings in my life, and I come in, and there's nobody to even receive me." So Ian Chappell takes Ross Edwards to a side and asks him, "What did this guy do when he came in?" He did nothing. He walked in. He looked around. Nobody was there. Didn't matter. He removed his gloves, kept his bag to one side, kept the gloves, lit a cigarette, and he's smoking. He did not even tell anything. That was Doug Walters for you. He took failure and success in the same stride. And that is something that right through most of the stories that you would read in the book about Doug Walters, every story is an eye-opener. I mean, his late nights, like Gary Sobers, that did not affect his game. He loved to play cards. And another story that I'm not very sure that most people would even believe was that after the underarm incident, which
that was my next question. Is it true?
Yeah. So
I didn't know if it was true. Is it true?
Yeah.
Mahesh, why don't you leave that story for readers to guess and read about instead of all the beats on the show?
Yeah, let them. Otherwise, if this goes on, pura cricket katha ye show pe aata hai.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that was the story that I was actually going to ask. But I think yes, you should leave that to the readers because that sums up the man really.
He's fabulous. I mean, I think he may be if a current player, I mean, not a current player, a recent player, if I have to compare him, probably it would be Virendra Sehwag, somebody who would come close to that. I mean, who played cricket in his carefree manner. But I think Doug Walters was probably slightly better in terms of strokes. The good thing was that he batted at number 6, but he never complained that a lot of players don't like to sit in the dressing room, right? I mean, they don't like to wait for their turn to come to bat. He never had those problems. He would be playing cards, but he knew exactly what was happening in the middle in terms of bowling changes and all that thing. But the moment he wore his pads, then he wouldn't play anything. He would be completely focused on the game. So these things actually says a lot about Doug Walters as a player. To me,
actually, Doug Walters has an Indian connection as well, because his last test was that famous Melbourne Test of 81 in which Kapil took 5 wickets despite a pulled thigh muscle. And Doug Walters, in fact, was the not-out batsman. Australia were all out for 83, and Doug Walters was the not-out batsman. And then he wasn't picked for the 81 Ashes that followed, although he was 35, 36. But they decided not to pick him, which I think was a mistake, because with Greg Chappell having decided to skip the tour, they lost out on 2 senior players, Greg Chappell as well as Doug Walters. And then Ian Botham did what he had to do in that Ashes series.
And it's fascinating. I mean, if you read Ian Botham's book, Don't Tell Kath, it's really an amazing book because it's very candid about that 81 series as well. And also he also had one of the weirdest sports agents that anyone could ever have. He had him for 1 year, who promised to make him the next James Bond in Hollywood. So there are all these kinds of. If you get your hands on that book, then you definitely
it's a classic.
Go through it. Yeah,
it's a classic.
Amazing.
So Doug Walters gave me a lot of meat in terms of as a character. I mean, I thought that. See, the only thing I thought was that he was slightly underrated, because Australia had a lot of superstars then. You had the Chappell brothers, you had Rodney Marsh, you had Thompson and Lilly. So you had half the team that were all superstars. Whereas Doug Walters in any other team would have really stood out. Unfortunately, he was an Australian team, so he was, I don't think he got his.
And that's unfortunate, because he is the first batsman to score a double century and a century in the same test.
Yep.
Yes, and it's only Gavaskar who joined him in. Later, Gavaskar joined him in 71, and then was it Gooch directly in?
I think it was Gooch directly. Yeah.
Gooch.
Yeah. The test match that Kiran More, Sanjeev Sharma, and a billion other Indians will not forget.
333.
A billion other Indians will not forget.
Absolutely.
Maybe Eddie Hummings will also like to forget that, right?
Yeah.
24 runs.
Yeah.
24 runs.
But
that's life.
There is one sport. Yeah, you can go ahead, Devendra.
That's life, because in November 1987, a certain Kapil Dev hit a certain Eddie Hemmings for a 6 over long on in the 87 World Cup semi-final, tried to repeat the shot, was caught on the boundary line, and we lost the semi-final. and 2.5 years later, the same Kapil Dev hit the same Eddie Hemmings for 4 consecutive sixes. So that's life.
That is
That's
life.
cricket for
You know,
you.
there is talking about like Doug Walters. I mean, one character who stands out for me from the 70s, 80s for India is Gundappa Vishwanath. You
Yeah.
know, very, very mild mannered, but also a character in his own way. So Yajurvendra Singh, in fact, told me this story, and Yajurvendra Singh, you know, who played a few test matches for India, a very good and articulate storyteller if you ever get to meet him. So he told me this story on his test debut. He, of course, got those 7 catches and was
Yeah.
and made that world record. But he was batting in the second innings with Vishwanath, and it was a minefield. And you, of course, had Derek Underwood bowling on such pitches. Derek Underwood, they used to call him deadly because of, you know, the fact that he could just come in, bowl in those tough areas and trouble batters. So Gundappa Vishwanath was batting beautifully as always on a tough wicket, and nobody else could bat like that. So, and he was flicking. He was flicking against the turn. And then he comes up to, then this is what happened. They had a chat after an over. And he just told Yajurvendra Singh, look, you know, here's what we've got to do, this, because obviously junior partner making his test debut. And then he told him that if Underwood continues to stray on my pads, I'm going to continue to flick him through mid wicket and square leg. Singh says that I didn't have the heart to tell him that not even one ball was on his pads. It was around off stump or outside off stump, and he was still with his magical wrist flicking that through the leg side. And he's telling him that if he bowls on my pads, I'm going to continue to do that. That was the kind of zone he was in.
By that logic, I think if he'd actually strayed on the pads, the ball would have landed deep fine leg or somewhere like that.
Possible.
Geometrically speaking.
Geometrically speaking. But that tells you, I mean, with the kind of character that he was, I mean, everyone talks about a Gavaskar, but 14 test hundreds, and India never lost in any of those matches.
Absolutely, that's a great record to have. Absolutely, yeah. I think, yeah, and there's more stories around Gundappa Vishwanath's late nights and drinking things as well. So obviously, I don't want to go into that because, you know, we've discussed enough late
But
night.
there's one of my other favorite stories is when, you know, England on a tour of Pakistan, an umpire, you know, obviously a home umpire being biased as always, you know, giving out, not out, all that stuff. So some of the England players, I think the umpire's name was Idris Beg, and he was kidnapped by some of the England players who threw a bucket of water on him, tied him, and they were just having fun. But then it became a diplomatic incident.
Oh my. That is
It became they were just having fun. They were taking their frustration out and having fun, pranking this guy, but it almost became a diplomatic incident.
As they say in England, they'll probably call it they were just taking a piss.
England and Pakistan was always a recipe for disaster because 83, 84, Ian Botham came home early, and he publicly said that Pakistan is the best place to send your mother-in-law to. And there was an outcry in Pakistan. At one point, the England team stopped getting food. So Bernard Thomas, the physio, he had to double up as the chef for a couple of days.
Wow.
They were on bread and butter.
And not just that, so Ian Botham writes in his book that because of that, media found his mother-in-law's house and went and questioned her a lot of time, like, are things okay between? And he said he had a very good relationship with his mother-in-law.
Yes.
My poor lady had to go through all this. And yes, of course, you may know that when Ian Botham got out in the 92 World Cup final, Amir Sohail said, "Who's coming in next? Your mother-in-law."
Yeah, they did not forget it. And then 87, 88, we know what happened. Shakur Rana and Mike Getting.
Yeah.
So England's tours of Pakistan always, you know, recently we just saw a very senior Pakistani administrator publicly said that, well, we had to be good hosts, so we gave them the trophy on a platter or something. The same man who on commentary had said during the 2003 World Cup match against India that if the Pakistanis cannot get Sachin out, then they should injure him. And he said that live. I heard it. Millions others heard it. I don't want to name him, but you all know who I'm talking about.
Raja आदमी है वो.
हाँ, एकदम. शहंशाह आदमी है.
Rambo Circus is very popular these days. That's what I'll say.
So just before we wind up, I need to tell you.
Just 1 second, Mahesh. Before we wind up, we have one more guest who's patiently been waiting. Just give me 1 second
lovely.
to add him in. So, Bhash, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bash.
Hi guys. How are you? Hi, Nisha.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
So great to have you, Bash. And I'm sorry to keep you waiting. We were just waiting for that story to get over. But yeah, I'm sure you have something really, really interesting to share from your end. And over to you.
So this is a story narrated by Vinu Mankad to my grandfather, because my grandfather was his first cousin. Then I don't know. So apparently, when India was touring Pakistan, Vinu Mankad was bowling, and I believe Abdul Hafiz Kardar was on the crease. And there was some Vinu Mankad was quite short tempered as a person, and he was also, he had a tiff with Naidu. He was, a sort of anti-establishment guy. So there was some communal remark that was made by Kardar to Vinu Mankad against something. And that's when the story goes that Vinu Mankad was so annoyed by the umpiring decisions, also the famous Pakistani umpiring decisions not going in favor, that he uprooted the stump from the bowler's end and tried to physically assault the batsman. Now I don't remember the name, but this is a passage. Of course, in today's time, I don't think that's even possible. But this is what he did. I don't know whether it's in the expert, but this was told by my grandfather. And of course, in today's time, that's just impossible to sort of. I mean, we've seen Shakib do that recently, but barring that,
we
story.
we saw it in the late 80s in India, a Dulip Trophy
Yes.
game between West Zone and North Zone, where Raman Lamba and Rashid Patel got into precisely that situation. Both were suspended for a while.
But the best part about the story is after the test match, I think Kardar gifted him a watch uh, as a gesture of, I think the series was drawn. I think the India Pakistan test series then was drawn, but Kardar gifted him a gesture and gifted him a very a special watch from Lahore or whatever, a handmade watch. So this was just a story that my grandfather had told me. It's a very fascinating story that even after, after the end of the day's play, they were still pretty good friends and they remained in touch till his passing away. So yeah,
Lovely to hear that.
one story
Yeah, that
heard from my
that we've
grandfather.
seen. And from the Pakistan to actually Mansingh, PR Mansingh, I had the good fortune of meeting him. He told me the story when 78, he was the assistant manager when they went to Pakistan. And he was responsible for making room partners. So, he actually allotted. So this was Kapil Dev's first tour. Kapil Dev was allotted with Erapalli Prasanna. Prasanna couldn't speak Hindi. Kapil couldn't speak good English. And he still made them roommates. And years later, and this is what Mansingh said, that Kapil actually admitted, and he told him that because someone as senior as him was there on that tour and they could just talk cricket, he's like, I learned so much from him.
Interesting. Awesome, Mahesh. We have already got some business ideas for you. You can release the audio version. Maybe Spotify might be wanting to do that with you.
चिल्ला चिल्ला के स्कीम बता दो सबको.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or do a
you know
podcast.
what I'm planning to do is part of the proceeds that I'm going to get out of this book, I'm going to give it to deprived kids. Okay, I mean kids who are poor, can't afford shoes. So I have spoken to the guy who mentored Yashasvi Jaiswal and Prithvi Shaw,
Yep.
Jwala Singh. I've spoken to him and I've told him, because he runs a club both in Santa Cruz as well as in Thane. So I've told him that if he can identify kids who can't afford, buying shoes and all that thing, that I would want to contribute in that way. So that's a noble cause for this book. I mean, this book is more to try and help poor kids in trying to get them better kits so that they can. You never know. A new
Yeah.
Jaiswal might come in maybe a few years later.
So lovely,
That'd be
Mahesh.
good.
Really, really nice gesture, and really appreciate you doing that. And I think it's amazing that what we guys can do through this medium. And I would love to kind of be associated with you in that regard as well. If you want some help, we are all here to pitch in as well. Awesome.
No, I
So
already spoke to Nishad also. So Nishad is also game for it. So Nishad, I'll take Nishad, Devendra to go and check out who's a good player technically. Nowadays, Nishad is with Gujarat Titans, so he's got a better eye than me to judge who's a better batsman. I'll take him along.
awesome. So I think sorry, Yogesh, I think you have been very, very silent today. I'll let you share one quick story, and I'll just want to end off on a very hilarious note. I have one anecdote to share, which I'll just do it in the end. But Yogi, you go first.
So he
Yogi,
was-
step any more back and you'll disappear. Already your head is disappearing.
Exactly. So I think it was year 2008. I was working in Mumbai, so me and my roommate, we didn't have enough good things to do on a late evening. So we said, okay, we'll go towards Bandra and that sort of area, and then we came back, and we were living around Andheri East Morol area. They said, "Yaar, raat abhi jama hai. What else can we do?" Nothing else to do. Lukhagiri pure. So we said, okay, let's go to Mumbai airport. Yeah. So we went to Mumbai International Airport, parked my bike there somewhere, and then just as we were walking around, we saw a gentleman, salt paper beard, and had a blue BMW SUV. I said, यार बड़ा बंदा दिखता है कोई तो पता नहीं कोई तो important आदमी आने वाला होगा, you know. And then we just kept an eye on him. He started sort of going towards the international arrival terminus, yeah, terminal. And so we said, okay, fine, we'll go international arrival terminal. It's always a joy to see, all of these people who lived outside, right? When they come, and then the people waiting for them in the sort of middle of night, but when they come, their embraces, and there's this joyful union. Yeah, it's nice for people who love people watching. It's quite a special thing. So we went there, right? And we kept an eye on this man. पता नहीं किसको लेने आया, right? And then after a while, we started seeing the sounds drop gradually, like yeah, somebody special, yeah. Then we see that there's a man coming out, and then on both of his sides, there are three airport security guards on each, right? A respectful distance, 1 feet each on the sides, and he's walking in between. And then everybody eyes there, who, and he's like, he comes closer, 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 and for 2 minutes, I was like, what am I seeing? So that man was the person, you see the initials here, and the man loved by everyone, Sachin Tendulkar. He was wearing the same dark T-shirt that I'm kind of wearing today. So he was in that memory. But what's special about that? Just as he was going towards, then our eyes went, where is he going? He was going towards the same BMW. It was his elder brother who'd come to receive him. Before he stepped into that car, the six people that were sort of accompanying him to the car, this man shakes hands with each one of them, says thank you. Everybody who's watching, they just watch. Nobody comes, interferes, disturbs, nothing. He comes, he shakes hands, he goes, and that moment was over. But that moment was over, but it stayed with me for all these years for the man's humility, because he did not have to do what he did. And that to me was the essence of the man. Not just the man who played on the cricket field, but how to lead your life off the cricket field.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, we all know what kind of a person he is, and it's heartwarming to hear that story. And I could literally visualize when you were talking in terms of what was happening at the airport. So yeah.
And this is the old terminal. This is the old terminal, which has been now
Exactly.
broken down,
Yeah.
and the new one is there.
Correct.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, Venu, where is your story?
All right. So, unfortunately, I'm not such a good storyteller as all of you out here. So, what I'm going to do is, and I purposely wanted to do this, I wanted to actually read it out because it's verbatim, because it's so beautifully narrated. And I think each single sentence and each single word there is so hilarious. It makes for, great listening as well. So this is an incident, described in From the Pavilion Inn by Harold Dickey Bird, the great English umpire. So this is from a county game. So Bomber Wells, a spin bowler and a great character, played for Gloucestershire and Nottinghamshire, and he used to bat at number 11 since he could not bat any lower. So that's how he described him. So, of course, of him they used to paraphrase in Compton's famous words, describing him an equally inept runner. So when he shouts yes for a run, it's merely on the basis of further negotiations. So that's how incidentally, Compton was no better. John War said of Compton that he was the only person who would call you for a run and wish you luck at the same time. So anyways, when Wells played for Glocks, he had an equally horrendous runner at number 10. And this is how the story goes. During a county game, a horror of horrors, right? Both got injured. And now we are talking about the stage where we used to have runners in cricket, right? Substitute runners. So both opted, number 10 and number 11, both opted for runners when it was their turn to bat. So you can imagine the scene, 4 people walking onto bat. And Bomber played a ball on the offside, called for a run. So he forgot that he had a runner and ran himself. Okay, so ditto at the other end. In the entire confusion, someone decided there was a second run which was on as well, right? So now we had all four running.
Someone decided.
Due to the confusion and constant shouts of yes, no, and eventually all of them ran to the same end, right? So not, at this point of time, the entire ground is rolling on the floor, laughing their behinds out. One of the fielders, the brave lad, stops laughing for a minute, picks up the ball, and throws down the wicket at the other end. And the last part of the story is the best part, right? Umpire Alec Skelding looks very seriously at the four and calmly informs them, one of you buggers is out. I don't know which. You decide and go and inform the bloody scorers. So that's
So one of the chapters is on Dickie Bird. One of my chapters is on Dickie Bird. He's a real character, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
so that, I mean, it's, I don't know why, but it's, I just felt that the rule change of removing the runner was slightly, I don't know. I didn't feel that was the right thing to do. Somehow I felt that kind of
but
created
there
a lot
were-
of
there were
interesting
teams
things.
You have to blame Arjuna Radatunga and Saeed Anwar for that. He fast tracked the abolition of the
Saeed
run.
Anwar would misuse it every time. I mean, every
Yeah.
time he's
Saeed Anwar got the 130 out of those 194
194 by with a runner.
with Afridi. And in the same game, Pakistan denied Rahul Dravid a runner.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Yeah, but I think the runner used to make things a lot more interesting. I just felt that that rule was something which should not have gone out. Somehow it made it for interesting.
The
viewing.
only time I've seen VVS Lakshman lose it on the field is when he had a runner and that confusion in the Mohali
Raina
test.
and Oja, I know, I remember that incident.
And apparently he didn't stop apologizing to him for some time after that.
Oh yes, absolutely.
VVS being the gentleman that he is. So
Alrighty. Who dropped
Mahesh
out?
has gone off.
where's the
Mahesh.
star of the show?
Oh my god.
So abhi show badla abhi band hai.
Yeah, Mahesh is like I've had enough stories today. Thank you.
Maybe somebody's at the door and he's telling him another story.
I think he's back. All right, Mahesh. Thanks a lot for such an entertaining show today. I think we all had a lot of fun. Thanks to Nisha, Devendra, Bhash, Yogi, everybody for joining in. I think this was the only first official book launch that we have done on this show, and I think we are privileged to have it today on Cherry and Timber Talk. And we all really wish you the very best with the book.
Thank you
and
very
with
much.
future books as well.
All the best.
Bash,
All the best.
Bash, have a good travel to Australia and get us the World Cup. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Alrighty, guys. You
Okay.
guys have a great Saturday. See you guys once again on Cherry and Timber
See you.
Talk.
Thank you very much. All the best,
you.
Mahesh.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.